So if you've tried hardwood cuttings and they haven't worked out, there might be some reasons for that. Today in this video, I'm going to go through and give you some tips that may help you out as far as getting your cuttings to successfully root. Now, hardwood cuttings can be done anytime during the dormant season, but I really like to take my cuttings starting now, kind of in the January to February time period. That gives them several weeks to get going before the growing season starts. So let's go through and let me show you some things about optimizing your hardwood cuttings. If you have questions about doing these hardwood cuttings, drop something in the comments and let me know, and I'll try to answer those as I can. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you find this video helpful. So let's get into it. So one of the first things you should do is make sure that you've got some nice, clean pruners. So these here, I've already cleaned them off with a little bit of dish soap and water, and I'm going to go back through and kind of sterilize them a little bit on all the surfaces here with some rubbing alcohol. And just give it a nice coverage, and then we'll let these dry a few minutes, and then they'll be ready to go and make some cuttings. Another important thing is to look for first year growth, and you can really tell here on this example of a viburnum. Right here, this wood looks completely different than this wood over here. It's a little bit rougher, this is smoother, and it looks more fresh. This is first year growth from this point on upward. That is your primary growth area. You're not going to want to get some of this older wood. You're going to want to take from the newer wood in order to ensure that your cuttings have the best chance of success. So always take from first year growth, and you can easily identify that by the change in the bark, and sometimes you'll even note a little bit of a collar kind of area where the new growth started and the old growth was. So this would have been growth from 2 years ago. This would have been growth from the past year. So on this particular one, I'm going to come up just a little bit from where that new growth started and cut above these buds right here, just like that. And then I'll trim off the bottom underneath these two nodes for my cutting, and that's where I'll do my rooting hormone and then stick the cutting. I can actually do 2 cuttings out of this particular one here because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 nodes, and 1, 2, 3, 4 nodes right there. So I will separate them right here in between those nodes, and I'll get 2 cuttings out of this one piece. So when you take a cutting, it's very important that you maintain the direction that it's going in. So it's growing this way, the buds are going to be going upward. And one little trick you can do to keep up with that is if you're taking cuttings, you can cut them at a slant to indicate which way is up. That little slant there can help with letting the water slide off it to reduce the rot from those tips as well, if you want to do that way. So basically you would just come underneath a node, do your cutting, make sure it's a flat cutting at that point so that you can identify that's the bottom. And then up here at the top, since I don't really need that tip, I can do it as a slight slant, just like that. I probably could do that a little bit better on that slant. So I have a little slant at the top of the cutting to point it upwards, and that's just to keep up with it. If you're familiar with the buds and everything on a plant, you'll notice that they all go the direction they're supposed to be in. So if you have multiple nodes on it, you can usually tell which way is up. You don't want to plant this into your pots like this upside down because it won't root well that way. So you want to have the bottom end in the cutting medium. So I just took 4 cuttings of this Annabelle Hydrangea. This is a Hydrangea arborescens. This hydrangea will actually put out blooms on the new wood. So in the spring, it'll put out branches and buds, and it will start blooming in the summertime. If you're trying to take cuttings from a Hydrangea macrophylla this time of year, it's going to be cutting off a lot of the flowering buds. So you're not going to want to do those right now. They are easy enough to do pretty much any time of year. So if it flowers in early springtime, I generally will take cuttings from it after it has bloomed and be able to help the plant by pruning it a little bit at that time, as well as get some new plants off of it. A lot of times when you take cuttings, you can use it as an opportunity to help prune up the tree or the plant. This is a beautyberry bush. I planted this one last fall, and it was really sprawling. The berries were covering it, and everything was really heavy. So what I want to do is I want to cut it back just a little bit on each of these branches, make some new plants while I'm at it, and hopefully stiffen up the stems a little bit and create a little bit more upright branching patterns. So I'm just going to come back here from the tips a little bit and cut down to some nodes, and we'll get several good stem tip type cuttings off of this. We'll just cut it back a little bit, and we'll get several beautyberry plants to grow for next year. So when you're taking cuttings, you want to make sure that you're taking a cutting that is actually long enough. In the winter time when we're doing these hardwood cuttings, you're going to want to have 2 to 3 nodes put into the soil medium that you're using. So right here on this one, you can see those are quite far apart. So we'll probably cut the lower portion of this one off and just use this upper area. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 potential nodes right there, and we can easily get these 2, maybe we can get that third one into the soil medium. But we're going to aim for at least 2 nodes to go under the soil medium, and we may actually do what you call wounding. I'll show you that here in just a second. So these are those beautyberry cuttings, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to come to the bottom of this one, and I'm going to cut that bottom portion up to the node right there and just trim off any excess. We got some little bits and pieces that came from where the berries were. Those aren't important to have anymore. So what I'm going to do down here at the very bottom is very lightly with the blade of the pruner, I'm going to scratch into that cambium layer a little bit. And what that does is it exposes more of that layer so that it will start to heal itself and create what you call calluses. Calluses contain a whole lot of undifferentiated cells, which means they're cells that haven't decided what they're going to be yet. And those cells will start turning into roots. So that will help improve the rooting ability of the cutting. I use this on a lot of difficult to root plants, and it really does help. You can use it on the easier to root plants, and it may actually increase those root systems a little bit better. Another tip that you may have seen in previous videos of mine is to use a jar of water to help keep your cuttings hydrated. The other benefit is when you go to put it into a powdered rooting hormone, having a moist area here at the bottom will allow that rooting hormone to stick better to the cutting when you are sticking it into your medium. So we're just going to put those beautyberry cuttings in here like this, and our Annabelle Hydrangea cuttings like that, and then our Viburnum cuttings in just like this. So for soil medium, I'm using a combination of coir, sand, and a little bit of fine bark shavings, which are sold as a soil conditioner in your local stores. The coir gives it the ability to hold moisture really well. The sand and the bark shavings give it some drainage. So it's kind of a mix of both worlds there. You want to have something that holds the moisture in but doesn't create issues with rot, and too much moisture around there creates rot. The other thing it does is it clings pretty well to the stem of the cutting itself. You don't want to have air pockets around your cuttings, because if there's air there, it's not going to root along those areas. So the more contact you have with the soil medium on the cutting, the better it is. So my tip for that is basically, once you have stuck your cuttings, make sure that you are firming the area around those cuttings. It's also a really good idea to make sure that your soil medium is nice and moist before you actually start sticking your cuttings. It just makes it easier for the soil to cling around your cuttings themselves, and stuff will slide into there nice and easy. So in the case here of these Viburnum cuttings, several of these buds are probably flower buds, like right here, and so I'm going to pull those actually off of the plant. We do not want to have energy going to those flower buds instead of going to rooting. So I'm going to remove those from that particular cutting. And the same I'll do with this one right here. That's not as much of a problem if you've got a plant that blooms in, let's say, in the summertime, where it's actually producing those blooms in the spring, or the buds in the spring. But for viburnums, they do bloom in the spring, so they've got their flower buds already on the old wood. So I tend to put my rooting hormone in a separate container so that I don't contaminate things with other cuttings. So if I end up at a point where I start seeing some sort of disease issues, I can take this stuff and get rid of it and not have to throw away my whole container of rooting hormone. And I'm getting a pretty good layer of rooting hormone. I'm going to try to get it up to that second node right at there, close to it. You may want to use gloves if you have a concern about that. The other thing I do is use a little bit of a pencil or something to dip a little bit of a hole into that medium. We're going to slide that in here, and then we're going to push this all the way down so that that node is below it, and then we're going to firm up and around that cutting with the soil really good. That will ensure good contact with the cutting surface against the medium, and hopefully will create some really good roots. Viburnums tend to be really good rooters, so I really have a lot of confidence in these here. In fact, all of these should root really well. But when you have a harder type of plant to root, you're going to want to maximize all the different little tips and techniques here that you can in order to make sure that they do root. And so there I've got all the cuttings put in here. I've got 11 total cuttings, the 2 Viburnum, the 4 Hydrangea, and then the 5 Beautyberry right back here. I could probably have squeezed in a few more cuttings, but I think that's good for this particular container. I do want them to have some room for their roots to grow so I don't have to go and transplant them right away. Now, they will probably start rooting around the time that, say, the weather changes to more warmer spring-like conditions. But we put them out here this time of year so that they can begin that callusing process, begin creating some of those cells so we can get a jump start on it. Probably by the 3rd or 4th week of spring, they'll be ready to transplant into their own little pots and will just take off. All of these are really good plants that are easy to root and easy to grow from cuttings like this. Where you put your pot is also very important, and what I mean by that is the location and how much sunlight it gets. If you have a location that's in full sun, your cuttings are going to dry out and they're going to get scorched a lot more so than a place with a semi-shady location. A spot under a tree with some branches and stuff is really good. This particular location is a little bit of an herb raised bed that we've got really close to the house. It's protected from the afternoon sun by the house itself. So it gets full shade here in the afternoon and just a little bit of sun in the morning. So it's probably the ideal type of location to do this. Plus I'm double using this raised bed that I'm not actively using during the wintertime. You can see I've got some oregano over here and some thyme down below it. So there's maybe some other scents here that may deter rodents, because you are going to want to also protect your plants from rodents. I have had many cuttings that have been damaged by a squirrel that decided to come in and try to plant its own nuts there, or dig through something, or just eat the plants themselves. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with rodent pressure. If you have a question about something from this video or about plant propagation, feel free to drop it in the comments and I'll see what I can do about getting that answered for you. I really appreciate you spending time watching this video, and if you would, hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time here on Growing the Home Garden. Thanks for watching.